this is Freckles and welcome to another day of portrait painting. As always, you can find the link to the exact sketch that I'm using for my painting in the description box. So if you want to join me and paint, you can download the sketch and print it out. And you can also find all the colors that I'm using for my work in the description box. They're all linked. If you don't have the exact colors and you can't buy them, that's fine. Just find something that's similar. I hope you enjoy it and please press subscribe. And thanks.
For all of the portraits that I'm doing today, I'm going to be using the same palette. So I'll start with raw umber, then ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, cadmium red, cadmium yellow deep hue, and titanium white. I suggest you pause the video whenever you see a flesh tone that you would like to recreate so that you can see, or slow down the video so that you can see exactly what colors I'm using. I'll be using the same colors over and over again in different amounts, and I'll add titanium white to make it lighter. I'll add some raw umber to make it slightly darker. And that's generally how I do all my portraits, with the exact same 7 colors that I'm using. Sometimes I change out the raw umber for burnt umber. Burnt umber is usually what I use in all my portraits, but I ran out, so I did the next best thing, which is to use raw umber. And you can see here I'm going to be color matching a really fair complexion, very similar to mine. And again, I'm using the exact same colors, just in different capacities. So I'm starting with a base of titanium white, and then I'm slowly adding in yellow, cadmium red, and the alizarin crimson as I need. And the reason why you can't see anything show up so clearly on this photograph is because it's a very good color match in some areas, so it's difficult to see on camera. I usually mix a color that I think it's quite close to the color that I'm looking for, and then I place it directly on the reference photo to see how close it is, and then I go back and readjust it to make it warmer, colder, or lighter or darker. And that's the approach that I take. That's why you see my paintbrush going back and forwards between the photograph and the palette without there actually being any marks left, because I'm checking the color by making like a tiny dot, and then I'm going back and readjusting it. Some artists are very organized and start their skin tone mixing from the lightest color to the darkest, which I understand and it makes complete sense. I'm just not that organized, so I don't do that. But it's up to you if you want to set up your palette in a different way. You can see that I still have the exact same palette and the exact same colors, and I'm going to use it to paint a slightly deeper complexion. And you'll see that this time I'm using a lot more of the cadmium yellow deep hue and the cadmium red, just to get that bright, vibrant, reddy, yellowy tone in the flesh that I really like to bring out. Usually when I paint highlights, there's a lot of blue in them, so you'll see that they're quite cold, but in this case the whole photograph is so warm that I've used cadmium yellow deep hue and some cadmium red to mix in with the titanium white to make my highlights. For the eyebrows and the hair, I do a mix of raw umber with a tiny bit of ultramarine blue and some alizarin crimson. And this is the palette when it's finished. You'll see how I'm not super organized in how I lay it out, but I try to keep it neat enough so that you will see what colors I was working with. Okay, so let's see how we're going to use the same 6 or 7 colors to create skin tones for this deeper complexion. And the one thing that I like you to notice is that this photo that we're trying to replicate, the colors that we're trying to mix are a lot more violet and purplish than the last one. So I'm using my burnt sienna, I'm using alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue as my main 3 colors for this piece. And then there's small accents where I mix in cadmium yellow deep hue and cadmium red. But the main parts of these paintings are with ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and burnt sienna. The shadows here are made up of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and sometimes a tiny bit of raw umber as well, but just without any white and in different amounts. And that's the same colors that I use for the beard, for the shadows, and for the hair. Occasionally I do use moss black for hair and eyebrows, but I didn't today.
And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please click the subscribe button and leave me a comment on what sort of complexions you'd like to see me paint next time. Bye!